time on. Oh my God. Giant follower again. Wow. What here, dude? Oh my God, see that? Dude, like it went, it like got tight, and I just let it there and put, oh my gosh. I was like crawling over a rock, and I stopped it and just went, oh.
This swim bait here is really a culmination of 10+ years of tournament fishing, tournament knowledge, of all those casts with no bites, mixed with, you know, that just out of high school, I want to catch a 14-pounder knowledge. And we brought all those years of experience into one swim bait, and I know this thing will get a bite. I've wanted to design a swim bait for since I was in high school. I mean, literally. I remember working at a little tackle store in the South Bay of the Bay Area there. We had a bunch of trout lakes around. We didn't have any gizzard shad out there really. We had a lot of threadfins. We had a lot of trout-fed lakes. And I've always wanted to kind of design and develop a swim bait that just gets bit. Man, I've seen so many swim baits on the shelves that look really good, and it's that old saying, you know, oh, that thing is designed to catch fishermen, and I didn't want that. The whole idea of a top hooked line through swim bait, man, I've been thinking about it for literally over a decade, and I've always wanted to kind of design and develop a single swim bait where I could hand it to you and get a bite. And you know, after being on tour for several years and mixing that big fish trophy hunting mentality with an 8-hour tournament day, further got my mind going like, okay, how do we develop a fish catching swim bait that I could use to catch big ones on a weekend, maybe get one bite, and also where I could use on the tour and continue to get bites and just use it all across the country in any given circumstance. So I've always wanted to develop and better the soft swim bait.
Well, 6-inch Bass Mafia Proto. 7-inch swimmer, dude, smashing it.
So if you look at all the different bass fishing lures over the years, there's all these little subcategories within the spinnerbait category, within the jig category, within the worm category. And then over here, there's this little swim bait category, but there's all these little subcategories in that swim bait category. A soft swim bait is only, you know, a small fraction of it. Every lure, it fits in a little niche when it comes to getting that bass to bite. And that's what, you know, our goal is to fit a specific niche when we were designing this dangerous swim bait.
Oh, crushed it. Whew, that's fun.
There are only a few roads that lead to that end result in getting those big bites. The further along I get in my career, the further I gain knowledge of what makes a big fish tick. All those things go through my head when I'm sitting down and, you know, drawing out lines or talking with the bait designers and the lure manufacturers. All that I took into consideration. Over the years, I know what I like. And it's just really nice to have an office I could go to right in my backyard where I say, hey, look, this is what I want. Let's see the sample in 2 weeks.
So here's where the magic happens right here, where the ideas of, you know, fishing the stuff and getting teeth marks on these lures and everything. And I get to relay all that stuff to that man over there, Isaac Payne.
That's probably the coolest thing about this whole project, is working with a designer like Isaac and just him listening and then him taking notes and then him drawing it up in front of my face and then hitting the submit button to the manufacturer and having a sample within a couple of weeks.
My name is Isaac Payne. I'm the Director of Innovation and Design here at the House of Outdoors. So if I'm not in the CAD working on it, I'm dreaming and thinking about it, right? What I'm gonna do the next day. A lot of the best design comes from, obsessing over it. Really, we've been working on this for a long time. A lot of hours we put in. But I would definitely say that the fishing, design, CAD, all that working together, and also having good insight from people like Chris Zaldain, as I refer to as a swim bait guru, helps a lot. Being very efficient and understanding his needs and what he wants to do in his design aspects and aligning that with what the computer could do, which is important.
That's been the coolest thing about this whole project. And I'll tell you, I've been in the fishing industry now for over a decade, and that is very, very rare. So just to even have the opportunity for someone to listen to me, I feel privileged.
I guess we need to figure out the material. That'll help a lot.
Yeah.
What material can they do?
Yeah.
I can go in here and get the volume to figure out the weight.
Cool. Yeah, we're in a good place. Like it.
Designing the Daingerous Swimbait, there's 3 things I look for. It's gotta have tail wobble, obviously. It's gotta have that head wobble, and it's gotta have a top hook. So we came up with an idea of a loaded version and an unloaded version. Coming out with an unloaded version where there's no harness in it, there's no hook included, it's basically a dealer's choice type of swim bait was the right move. And I believe you gotta have both. I believe you have to have a bait where you could rig it anywhere you want, any way you want. It's dealer's choice. You could Texas rig it, you could belly weight it. So in my opinion, to really service all anglers from across the country, across the world, you gotta give them an option in a unloaded version and also, the loaded version, which to me is the best overall.
Trying to figure out how to come up with this design and figuring out a way to come up with something that Chris will like and that'll work and will catch fish ultimately. It's to catch fish, and for those of y'all listening to this, maybe you'll buy it and give it a try, put fish in your boat as well.
I have been very strict on this from the start. Give me a 6-inch version and give me a 7-inch version. 7-inch, it's big enough to catch a 13 or 14 pounder. It's big enough to imitate a gizzard shad, but also give me a light version and a heavy version. Light version for those shallow springtime riprap banks, laydowns, docks, and then give me a heavy version where I could use it on those, Tennessee River ledges, on those deep brush piles down there in Texas, on those rock piles out there in California in 30 feet of water. Give me those options. So there's no one swim bait you could put in my hand and say, fish it everywhere. It's just impossible. You gotta have options, you gotta have versatility, colors, size, and weight.
What do you think about this?
And we could play with, what I was thinking, we could play with that material.
Yeah.
Like
If you did a lead one, that'd be 3/4, and a brass one would be 3/8. Essentially, I want like an equivalent of a 3/8 ounce spinnerbait, like where we throw that, so 5 feet or less, and then pickwick. And then we always talk about pickwick out there deep, which is this guy right
those
here.
ledges.
Yeah.
It's like-
Yeah.
I had to figure out the best way to help us get this project done. Sometimes just keeping my mouth shut, but also pushing back with him too, because I understand a lot on the manufacturing, the design side, and really working together as a seamless unit.
There's a thing called texture, and it's not what you would think texture is. When I first heard about, the plastisol, which is the material it's made out of, the plastisol texture, I thought, oh, it's just the outside. What is it, scale pattern? What is it, smooth texture? No, that ain't it. Texture is where the density of that plastisol changes. The softness of the bait changes. So you have to go through this 15%, 20%, 25% texture and land on the right one.
But I think that texture change, they're sending you 3 different textures with it, because you may notice those little changes. It's like, oh man, I like this texture better for the loaded versus the unloaded.
Yes.
So that's what I was thinking.
That's a major thing.
Because now there's nothing in the unloaded.
Remember I told you, I told you like it seemed like it was stiff from like that point on, so the texture should force it to move even more.
So we went down 1 and 2, and we went
up 1 and 2.
So
up
could,
1, okay.
Up
cool.
1, just so you can kind of say, all right, I like that softer one.
Yeah.
This one is allowing it to move a
move
little more.
Perfect.
It's just something that can maybe help us try to figure it out.
No, that's the right call.
To make colors that are specifically for the US market. It specifically looks like a rainbow trout, specifically looks like a gizzard shad. Specific colors that are proven colors that work muddy water, in clear water, in slightly stained water.
And we're gonna take the chartreuse down on this guy a little bit, hopefully. Yep.
And then that one.
The number 2 of this.
Correct.
This guy.
That one, but instead of it having that reddish pink to it or pinkish color, it's gonna have like a gold.
Gold. Really what we want here is bone, like just a bone flavor. Wow.
So it'll be a white pearl
about that?
with like that golder kind of color.
Yep.
I
like it.
20 colors, man.
I like it.
You know, some of the complaints I've had in the past about swim baits, myself included, I would complain about how, hey, you know, I can't swim this soft swim bait faster than about a slow medium retrieve. When I do that, it rolls on its side. When I do that, it rises up. When I do that, the tail doesn't wobble like it needs to wobble. So I was, you know, in the past I've been handcuffed to a certain retrieve, and it's so frustrating during tournaments where I can't go down the bank and throw it. So I wanted to develop something where I could fish it more like a spinnerbait, you know, slow down the retrieve and then speed it up when I'm on this giant, you know, stretch of rocks with laydowns. I want to develop something I can fish a little bit faster, and that's another difficult thing. When you develop a swim that you can fish faster, you got to change the tail, you got to change the whole dynamics of the tail, the head, the rigging style.
Or would we have to start over on?
Probably would have to rethink it.
Yeah, right. It would be a lot more beneficial if it was all one piece and stayed one piece, so lead. Is this 3/4 you feel like?
I was calculating
that was lead,
3/4, but we could shave off some material.
Okay.
Because that doesn't
End
need to be
user.
cut there. We need
Correct.
that right there.
Correct.
So I wanted to put as much as I could put into the bait, with him being hard to work with, as far as being very picky, precise, analytical, almost so analytical we may not have gotten the bait done.
I think we're on prototype 6, I believe. 6 or 7. It's a lot of back and forth. It really is. The thing about prototyping swim baits is you can't get too excited about the first couple revisions. It looks great, but does it swim great? I mean, that's the thing.
And we've got the head wobble, we've got the tail wiggle, and really now we're just looking at like belly shape and overall colors. We're we're looking at Rev 3 now. There's a lot of it on the wall there, but don't zoom in too. don't zoom in too much. All right, you guys will see it next time.
Make them think it's that over there.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh dang, here's another color. There's the original.
Yeah,
that's the original
Show
one.
me this.
It's so funny where they came from.
Oh my gosh, dude, this is Rev 1 right here. We were definitely spitballing. We were just throwing the darts at the wall for sure. It's crazy if you think about that.
Yeah.
So I look back on maybe the first or second version. One of the trends right now in swim bait fishing, especially the smaller finesse swim baits, is what I call like a perpendicular shaped tail. So if you imagine a T-shaped tail that a lot of the swim baits have nowadays, that particular tail, in my opinion, has a beautiful wag to it. We played a lot with that design tail with the larger 6 and 7 inch swim baits, but it simply doesn't give the bait that head wobble. I want more head wobble. So going just something as simple as adding some material to that T, you know, to where it's heavier in the rear. It just forces that head to move back and forth. It forces that belly to stay still, but the ends of the bait move. So those little things, those little changes, is just an example of how touchy a swim bait design is.
We had to add some beef, John. You see where the tail starts further back, like compared to this guy right here. Like on revision 1, it was just straight to the tail. We added some beef for that harder hitting, but not so much in the first revision.
Thickness of the bait, the taper of the body, thinking about the meta center, which is the center of the bait, as far as the mass, how well in this particular case the tail can move versus the head, trying to get the head wobble.
If you think about the hydrodynamics, when you're reeling in the swim bait, you know, what is that water doing on the surface of that bait and on that tail? What is it doing to the rest of the body? It's not just the tail, but it's the rest of the body, and that's what you look for.
I would say our kick is a pretty dynamic on this bait because there's a really nice taper from the back of the bait towards the head of this bait. So I would say we're in a good place with all the hours we put in so far.
Trying to balance the tournament life and the filming life with prototyping. You know, you would think it's as simple as, you know, grabbing it and going out in the swimming pool or throwing it in the sink and just kind of moving it through there. That is not prototyping. Prototyping is going out to a place that actually has fish that'll bite a swim bait and getting that feedback in the bite, in the nudge, in that water clarity. So, got him. Yeah, that's a nice one.
The hell?
Oh. When they crush it that hard, that is rad. Oh my gosh, dude, that was so much fun. I mean, smashed it. Well, I like this version of this prototype, definitely. It really has to be on that swim bait rod with that swim bait line, that swim bait reel, like real-time prototype testing in order to achieve that end goal. Just crawling it over those rocks like a square bill. Oh God, I just had one, Johnny! Freaking teeth marks on this thing.
When Chris was saying he wants a top hook, something that can potentially be removed and going back in, and it challenged me as a designer, right? It allowed me to do what a designer should do best, which is listen, not think that they know it all. Because I do fish, right? But not at the same level Chris does, right? He puts all those hours on. That's just something he's done. Put a lot of time with that swim bait.
This little harness, I mean, this internal harness, that's just it's the nucleus of the cell. I mean, it is encapsulated inside of a soft plastic painted body, and it is truly the heart of the swim bait. That system is the heart of the swim bait.
Exact same hook you use.
Wow, that's it, bud.
There's your 6 on oversize. It's a clear model.
That's it. And then, so like, see how it does this and that? We're gonna rely on the slit of this to keep it upright.
The design of the harness that holds the hook, that was very innovative. It really came from aligning with Chris. You know, he had those thoughts. He probably dreams. He's been dreaming a long time, probably, with what his perfect swim bait would be. And I listened to him, and we collaborated together to come out with this final design. Like I said, it's going to be something that stays in the bait. We didn't want that harness to get in the way of the swim of the bait.
We'll nail this one. I'm really stoked to see what you know, our materials, you know, what they are, and then once we place them in the plastic, see what our balance looks like, and we'll just make that adjustment. But that right there, no one else does that.
So one of these, so this fits in both sides baits. So
okay, right.
2 different ones.
No, right.
So it's kind of a top-down view.
Yep.
Innovative contraption.
So yeah, so like, as I'm looking right now, I mean, that'll be dead centered. The only, and maybe once we have it molded in lead, like it's perfect right out the giddy.
That was a challenge as well, but ultimately you can use it whatever hook you want, and I think that's the most exciting part. It's somewhat of a line through, but I may let Chris talk a little about that. But
Trying to figure out, okay, how are we gonna make this hook move into this bait, move out of this bait, lock into it. That's a long process, but that's the niche we're filling. That's what we're going for. I want the best swim bait out there, that when a fish bites it, I don't want to miss it. That when a fish bites and it goes to shake its head, that bait goes up the line and I've got all flipping hook in his mouth. And that's the niche we're filling. Taking the top hook and taking the line through and combining the two, it's been so hard. It's been a hard process, but that's the niche we're filling. It's the best of both worlds. That is the hook that when they bite it viciously, they come to the boat 100% of the time. And it's just kind of a middle of the road punching hook. You know, it's not the super 4X style hook that would throw the balance off this loaded swim bait. It's not too light, you know, we're talking 5, 6, 7, 8+ pounders where they'll bend that, that flipping hook, but it's just a nice middle of the road 5/0 medium wire hook. Doesn't hinder the action of the swim bait, but it's plenty stout to land those vicious bites. That hook cannot move in that harness, but when a fish bites it, it has to come out, giving you more chance of landing that big fish. So the less pressure there is on that hook, you know, when that 8-pounder's on, less weight on there equals more fish caught. You take all these things into consideration, and then you come up with the end result.
I love it. It's kind of shaddy. It's kind of spotted bassy.
Yes, that's what.
Hitch looks like a hitch.
Ultimately, working with Chris Zaldain was amazing. He pushed me a lot. You hit those aha moments where you're able to deliver that final product. And even if you didn't think you could do it, we did it. So I would definitely say the collaboration was 100% important. We'll get you guys a great final product that works the way it should. And you'll be able to put a lot of big fish in the boat and have a lot of ease of use as a fisherman, because we're thinking about you 100%.
I'm really excited for this one, and I'm really excited for you guys to give me the feedback, because I've been working over a couple years on this design, and to see it come to life is really, really special. Swim bait fishing is something I'm passionate about, and throwing it on tour when I'm on the clock, there's no better feeling. And I can't wait for you all to check it out and see for yourselves.